I want that you watch this slide. And you remember that we were talking about diversity, that we have big diversity due to small changes in DNA. So I want that you tell me which animals are real and which one are taken from a movie or from a science fiction. Maybe you can stop the video and think about it. Maybe you already thought and you have an answer. And if you watch Harry Potter, you said, Nicholas, this is very easy. This came from Harry Potter. I remember very well. And if you're all like me, you said this came from another movie. And if you are paying a little bit of attention, you're not sleeping, you know, okay, this definitely doesn't exist because it's impossible. However, the interesting thing is not that these three are not real organisms, but that the other ones are actually living organisms. So I just wanted to show you that although science fiction can create very crazy organisms, life is actually doing even a better job. And biologists have been trying to work in organize this incredible diversity. And how they do it? How they classify the organisms using a field called taxonomy. So in this slide, I would like to show you that all this diversity was arranged into three main domains by scientists. And there's a huge diversity of species. As I said before, taxonomists have done this job of naming species and also classify them into different groups. Let's talk about this. So, for example, here, if you see the scientific name of a kangaroo, you can see it here. For humans, the name will be Homo sapiens, as you can see here. And remember, it always has to be in italics. In italics. And there is also a common name. Here is red kangaroo. In humans, the same thing is human, man, or woman. However, the scientific name will be Homo sapiens, and the same thing happened with all these. The more specific category is called species. Later, here it will be genus, that it will be all the different type of kangaroos. Then family, that is a more broader, and you can continue going in that direction, yeah, through order, class, phylum, kingdom, and domain. And I don't want that you remember that there is the kingdom or that the class is Mammalia. This is not important. I just want that you remember, and please pay attention to and read in detail this, because generally there is a question about this in the test, that there are different categories, that the most specific is called a species, then genus, then family. This section is actually important, and that there are three domains. That is fundamental. So what I want that you remember, that there is a huge variation of species, yeah, that the person who classified does, the scientists, the field is called taxonomy, and they name it and classify this. I want that you remember three, that they have a scientific name, each species, and that it has to be in italics, yeah. Then all these categories, I want that you remember them, that there are species, genus, family, order, and remember, this is also important, that I want that you remember three domains, and we will talk in the next slide about it. So as I said, there are three domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Here you find an example. So they look relatively similar. However, when you study the cellular anatomy, you will see that there are differences. On the other hand, the eukarya generally are multicellular, but they're also unicellular organisms. And also when you go and look at the cellular anatomy, they will be different. So these two So bacteria are the most diverse and widespread prokaryotes. However, archaea are also very important, and they live in extreme environments like volcanoes. They are very important. They have many applications. They can be used because as they grow in such an atypical environments, we can study them and use it and have many applications to our society. Finally, the eukaryotic, they are, as I said before, they can be single cell and they can be multicellular.
Life comes in all shapes and sizes, from complex multicellular organisms, such as green plants and animals, to tiny single-celled species, including bacteria, amoeba, and some algae. Scientists believe all life on Earth is descended from a single common ancestor. To help us categorize the species that came afterwards, we group related species. During early evolutionary history, life split into three major domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes. Prior to this split, early life was constantly evolving. Eventually, the first domain, bacteria, became well defined about 3.5 billion years ago. Bacteria are usually microscopic, single-celled organisms that are marked by tremendous metabolic innovations. Some bacteria can live in the deep oceans where they feed on sulfur. Bacteria can be both helpful and harmful to other species such as humans. For instance, bacteria in our stomach help us digest food, but other bacteria, such as some strains of Salmonella, can actually cause food poisoning. About 1 billion years after life evolved, domain archaea formed. Like bacteria, archaea are also single-celled organisms. Archaea weren't discovered or recognized as a separate domain until the 1970s. Some archaea are able to survive in extremely hostile environments, including the hot spring geysers at Yellowstone and the Great Salt Lake. Other archaea can be found in the soil, ponds, and oceans of the world. There are no archaea that hurt humans, as far as we know. Fast forward another 1 billion years or so, and a landmark event occurred. A bacteria seems to have merged with an archaea, and the two work together, eventually becoming a completely interdependent organism. This represents the origin of the eukaryotes. These early eukaryotes gained the ability to protect their DNA with a nucleus and evolved a cytoskeleton that contributes to the tremendous diversity in shapes in this domain. Eukaryotes include fungi, plants, and animals. Some eukaryotes stole the ability to photosynthesize or get energy from sunlight from bacteria and evolved into a variety of algae that would later go on to become plants. Some early eukaryotes formed colonies and eventually evolved into multicellular organisms such as the plants and animals of today. That's right, you are a eukaryote. It's important to note that while eukaryotes are the only domain to have achieved complex multicellular life forms, that doesn't mean eukaryotes are more evolved than bacteria and archaea. Bacteria and archaea have had billions of years to adapt and survive as single-celled organisms, meaning many of their internal processes are just as advanced, but in different ways.